Hey everyone, we're gonna continue on with the next three chapters of Xenoblade Chronicles Mira, which is 16 dance, 17 perspective, and 18 peace. Oh boy, where am I? Here they are. Okay, so dance. Yeah, this was a really fun one to write. I really loved it. I really enjoyed writing dance, and I always listen to Spotify when I'm writing, and I just have a real. I listen to Piano Man a lot, and so I was like, I just wanted to incorporate it for some reason into the story. And I actually looked up the instruments that. I was like, what instruments do you use for Piano Man? Like, what are the instruments in the whole song? And there was I was able to find out what they were, and not all the characters had them. The mandolin was missing, and I think an accordion was missing. Instead, we had Sagis and Alto. One had a guitar that is in the song, and the other one had one that isn't. And so he's the one that's left out of it. I think it's Alto. But for Tuesday's Gone, I could not find the list of the instruments that you actually need for that song. I couldn't find it anywhere. I couldn't figure out what the pieces were. So I just assumed that between everybody, they had what they needed for that one. So that was the tougher one. Seriously, I looked everywhere. I couldn't find like any lists. Like, I mean, I could go and look up Leonard Skinner and see like the band members and see the instruments they play and assume that all those instruments are used in Tuesday's Gone, but I don't know. So I don't know. And also we had Ty singing. Piano Man with a bit of a country vibe to it, since that's how his voice is. And then we had Aaron singing Tuesday's Gone. Good times. That was fun. So let's start with the review for chapter 16. Where are you? There you are. For how exaggerated there are a lot of truths to be found in older cartoons, so I have to wonder if any of those piano mover bits were true to an extent. Yeah, me too. I really do wonder. Pianos are weird. For a reason, seeing Sharon here only just reminded me of the numerous murderers and serial killers who made it on board the White Whale. Not even talking folk like Powell and Justin who went on to become killers. Maybe it's because in light of what happened last chapter as well as the interview story. Yeah. I don't have any explanation or excuse for how those people got through the process, but they did. Well, it's nice that there's at least two people on board the Whale who genuinely liked Sharon and vice versa. Yeah. Sharon, Alto, and Sagis' relationship is a fun one to write. Because they don't... I wouldn't say they're completely friends-ish. Like, Sagis and Alto are definitely more open to being friends with her. And Sharon's more like, it's a give-and-take scenario where they always exchanging favors, basically. I had a feeling it was going to be a Piano Man for the first song when the harmonica was brought up, but I couldn't figure out where the mandolin was going to come into play exactly in place of the guitar. Part of me was thinking green tambourine for a reason, even if not all the instruments that are present, and it got debunked almost immediately during the stage setup. I don't know what green tambourine is. Yeah, Piano Man's a really good pick, though. Not only is it just so uplifting, but it's a good allusion to the new rules and callings various people in Xenos alike take up and pursue in NLA eventually. Combatants find their passion in less violent professions. People find their calling to be put out in the field, even if they have to be heavily persuaded. The various blade divisions also helping people find their place in life. Certainly more fitting than a lot of 2010s classics. I wouldn't know what would even qualify as a 2010 classic because we just got into 2020. So you'd have to give maybe, as is in the story, 30 more years before people determine what a classic from 2010 really is. And I included those lines about it because I feel like Tuesday's Gone and Piano Man are classics to us, but we live in 2020. Whereas in 2056, those songs are like super old, like much older. So it's a funny thing where it's like, why are these people from 2056 playing songs from 1960 or whatever? And I'm like, well, see, I don't think they're that old, but you know what I mean. That reaction from Chris, it seems that she knew something happened in Nantucket, but didn't know it was associated with dark matter. This made me wonder about what could have been if she were able to prevent it from happening. If Lau might have gotten a shot at happiness, or if he would have turned traitor all the same because of similar events that preceded XCX, or maybe finding out the truth about what happened to Charmaine and Shenxi's body. Or even just Shenxi, since we know what happened to all children outside of Lynn, if they weren't selected to be part of the active crew. Leonard Skinner, huh? Wasn't expecting that one. Good song to remember those who have since gone away. Yep. I didn't actually think they would. I didn't think they were such good picks, to be honest. I picked them because I liked them. But maybe it was something in the lyrics that I actually thought about that allowed me to be more comfortable with the choices, especially Piano Man, because like as Ty is singing it, he gestures out to the crowd, he gestures to alto. There's a lot in the song I feel that fits in with the performance. Whereas Tuesday's Gone was more in my head for something for Aaron specifically to sing to Chris as a romantic thing. I'm assuming that HB and Alexa are aboard the whale when I ponder this, but I'll be interested to see what pulled Flame away from the two of them, that she wound up on a different arc entirely. So I've been debating as to whether I should answer this now or not, since I think it might be a spoiler, but also it's not really a spoiler. No. So I have established that D003 is Noah's Cradle, and Noah's Cradle has the L222, the white whale, as its arc. So everybody on Noah's Cradle will be going onto that arc. You know, everybody. D064, the cross, is where Flame lives with HB, Alexa, and the Coos. D064 has its own white whale, its own arc, L015, Pequod. That's the one that everybody from the cross will be getting on. Kind of an odd question, but I couldn't help but think that with that many eyes on, with that many eyes were on Chris and Aaron, with all the scenes of Chris being in her room, lab that we read, is this the first time a lot of faces have seen Chris in a while, or does she still give lectures regularly outside of what's written? That's a good point. I remember opening the story with her telling a lecture and then never having her do it again. I guess it could be implied that she still does. It's just that once she got a hold of the dark matter research, she's like, screw lectures, this is more interesting, and just kind of got sucked into that. I know that these present-day stories aren't necessarily the most interesting to write compared to the drama and intrigue of the past stories, but these stories of how the whale crew and passengers busy entertain themselves over the seemingly endless journey serve as a good intermission and digestive break from how intense the past stories can get, and you never really know what to expect from them. Plus, you don't get to see a whole lot of stories set in mid-Exodus, though I too am excited to see what happens when and after they make Starfall, and what familiar faces will show up. Yeah, I cannot wait for Starfall. Oh my gosh, this review's long. Oh right, it's a review for Perspective. I shouldn't be surprised. Oh my gosh. Why do I never write like a normal person? Why is it that I either write 8,000 words or 20? It doesn't make any sense to me. And it infuriates me. Perspective was so damn long. It didn't need to be that long. Oh my gosh. The summary of Perspective is one long day. As you can see, that's why I had the time for all the scene changes once we got to this specific date. We were actually originally going to start on the date. I didn't want to have another recovery phase at the beginning. So all that stuff that happens before we get to March 3rd, I think it is, March 3rd, 2054, all the stuff before that happens, I originally wasn't going to be in part of the chapter, but something from the last comment you made, I think on chapter 15, yeah, so, I don't know. Something just made me want to write that. I don't know, but whatever. It doesn't matter much. I wrote it there. The chapter became super long. It's actually longer than Lawless, which I did not expect. Not that much longer, but a little longer. So here we go. Perspective. Did I have anything interesting to say about Dance? No, I already talked about Dance and the song choice that I made. Also, the conversations that everybody had while they were dancing was a lot of fun to write, especially Janix and Elma's. Exploring Janix and Elma's relationship is like the core of this entire story. So yeah. Also, I think this was the chapter where Aaron asked Chris to call her Aaron, as opposed to Ms. Hills, which she's what? Okay, here we go. Perspective. I like also the summary of the chapter is just a particular attitude toward or way of regarding something, a point of view. That's the definition of perspective, which summarizes Steven's whole issue. You know, is that from his perspective, things aren't going well, and so he's gonna fix it. All right, here we go. Perspective. If being a coalition engineer doesn't pan out for Cruz, there's always the deserted island getaway package. Actually, can you even fish out boots and tires in the new Animal Crossing? The island's deserted, so that implies nobody's lived there, let alone brought a car there. So is Tom just gonna pollute the rivers with junk like that and expect you to clean up? Yeah, maybe. I actually don't know. I've never played Animal Crossing. Funny, before reading this, I saw a tweet on how to avoid toxic positivity and always look on the bright side, as well as a few other phrases I often say. We're on the more toxic side of the list, since the phrases imply that there's no room for negative thoughts or emotions, when there totally should be to allow for healing. The more appropriate and less insensitive response is supposedly, it can be difficult to see the good in the situation, but we'll make sense of it when we can. So this is kind of like an aside, but I saw that tweet too. And while I get what the tweet was trying to say, and I know that I used it specifically in a bad way in this fic, it's also not supposed to be a bad thing. You know, when you tell people to look on the bright side, it's not supposed to be an inherently bad. It's not like it's saying that the bad stuff doesn't exist. It just wants people to be more optimistic. And so I do get how positivity can, being a little too positive in some situations can lead to people not liking it. But the fact that the more appropriate response is like 3 times longer, you know, instead of look on the bright side, or it can be difficult to see the good, but we'll make sense of it when we can. You know, it's like, that's the kind of culture that we're in now, where for some reason people find that specific phrases aren't exact enough or are too simple in some way, and they have to come up with different ways to say it, and it ends up becoming like a sentence or two, so that you can make sure not to offend anyone or this or that. And I get it, I do. I just, you know, I wasn't making a comment on that by having Alto react negatively to being told that by the doctor. It wasn't supposed to be some kind of commentary or anything like that. It's just that, as I think Aaron says, that he's on edge, you know, because this is Janix was just in the hospital for being shot in the back, and now she's here again because of what happened to Lao. So he's kind of over it. He's a little angry. It's Hope. Interesting to see her in a non-civilian role in this canon first, but it makes sense, even though the devs gave her jack all when it came to healing arts. Seriously, why is Irina the sole medic in XCX, and why only the one good healing art? That's what I didn't like about Xenoblade Chronicles X. One of the things I didn't like is that there was no effective way of healing that didn't involve being in overdrive all the time. Because smooth recovery. It doesn't heal a lot, and I say it that way because I had the rebel voice on Cruz when I started playing before I changed it to the intelligent voice. I don't know what that one's called, and he said the move like smooth recovery. Seriously, what the hell is up with that? I hate being in overdrive all the time. As much as is it We're Fleeing? Is the overdrive song? As great as the song is, I prefer hearing other songs. I don't like having it supersede everything because you're in overdrive all the time. But whatever. But it's a good question. I don't know. And yeah, I was super excited to reintroduce Hope as well as a physical therapist. Well, if Doug can't be around to be the skull guinea pig / butt monkey, I'm glad it's HB. Yep. Writing that scene was a lot of fun too. Seeing Elma and Hope in the same room, it occurs to me from the potty banter in XCX that some potty members have pre-existing history. Now, it makes sense for those in the same division to have that, or those that have it. For story reasons, I always found familiar cross-division interactions interesting, especially Hope, seeing how she's the only mediator potty member outside of Cross, potentially. Like, how did she get the nickname of Princess from Murderess? Or when did she and Elma have time to share a cup of tea? Basically, when and how did these paths cross? I hope that my story can not really answer that, since I forgot about those interactions until I read this comment, so I will definitely be using it. Not as a ghostwriting thing, but because I do want to, like, I don't just want to write my story as the new canon, quote unquote, of Xenoblade Chronicles X. Sorry, I moved the mic away from me. I don't want to do that. I don't want this to be just retconning everything. I want to use elements from the actual game where I can. So having Doug die on Earth isn't me retconning Doug because I don't like Doug. I actually like Doug a lot. It's that because he knows beforehand about the truth of the white whale, and because he reacted negatively at the end of Xenoblade Chronicles X, I can't see him going through with it in this canon, my personal canon for the story, because it's something that doesn't sit well with him. It wouldn't make any sense to have him decide, yeah, even if he does want to pay off that debt, which I forgot was even a part of his character. And then though people are probably thinking, if you forget all these things, maybe you should spend more time on the Xenoblade Chronicles X wiki. I would rather not. I would rather... I think what matters is what I can remember from Xenoblade Chronicles X off the top of my head. The stuff that I forget doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Like the Great One, totally forgot about that. Who gives a shit? That's what my view has always been. If I can't remember a specific thing from Xenoblade Chronicles X, chances are it wasn't worth remembering. That's how I view it. And I have been spending a bit more time on the X Wiki lately because I'm not going to make up... I don't have to make up Ganglion forces. Ganglion soldiers. Luxor exists, Goetia exists, Riz, Dagan, Galders, Satyrs, Kumovas, Zerns. What was the other one called? The little turret gun. The Prone exists, the Marnux exists, the Malsaldi exists. So I'll be able to use all that. So I will definitely refer to the wiki for that. And I'm definitely going to need to use it a lot more when we get to Mira for a bunch of reasons. But just for now, pre-Exodus, since there's not a lot of stuff pre-Exodus that matters, I just kind of make choices and forget things. And also potty banter in Xenoblade Chronicles X is super hard to come by because of how many playable characters there are, and there's just a chance that they won't say anything to each other. I did get Hope and Elma's stuff about T though, because I needed Hope a lot, because her first... Who thought it was a good idea to have Hope's first Affinity mission become available so early, but involve you going to Caldros? I thought that was a good idea. It was a stupid idea. Like, legitimately a stupid thing to do. Here we go. I always forget what button I'm looking for. Generally not a good thing for mercs to develop a history of doing things that go against past clients. Though one could argue it's worked out for Sagis and Alto. But hey, if these want to shoot themselves in their feet for the clink of coin, a little buttering up from a pretty lady. Okay, wait, what? I don't think I've read this before. Like, the rest of the review I did, but I don't remember this line. If these guys want to shoot themselves in their feet for the clink of a coin and a little buttering up from a pretty lady. That's Sagis and Alto for you. Yeah, I mean, out of all the Reapers, I know I don't spend enough time with them, and I'm really sad about that, but yeah, I mean, they can't help it. I think I mentioned specifically in another chapter where they weren't together, that one of them was off looking for girls. I don't remember which one it was. I think Alto. But it's always... I like those two. They're silly. Shame we know so little about the Clue and their culture outside of what Selka shares in-game and a nil-nil flavor text. Yep, that's why I'm diving more into it. I'm sure Fry's got a lot of scars and bruises from not keeping his mouth shut after having a few drinks in his early days of drinking. That's for sure. Ow. I won't deny that the thought of Ethos running face first into Bose's chest and then getting lectured by the tall, imposing old man with a cot somewhere in the middle of all that brings a smile to my face, but he's got a different role to play here. Yeah! Oops, I hit the mic button. I hope I haven't done that before. I muted the mic really briefly. Honestly, part of me still thinks that Bose would have been a more sensible choice to bring on this operation as opposed to Fry, but I wanted to use Fry. That's the whole reason why Fry's in this chapter, is because I wanted to use him for Elma. But yeah, and also I mentioned that she was considering Bose, and that would be a really funny thing too. Yeah, Cots. I was gonna have Bose say that in one of his scenes, but I actually couldn't remember what it was that he yells. I think I thought it was Cots, but I didn't remember, and I didn't want to say it and be wrong, because that's the kind of thing you don't want to get wrong. I suggested that Fry try sake myself, but man, if his response to you telling him he should try fine aged wine isn't funny. Yep. I mean, could you imagine it? Like Fry with wine? It just doesn't feel like Fry. By the same token, beer, hard liquor doesn't sound like Elma. And maybe it is. I mean, I don't know. Maybe. There's a last engineer unaccounted for. Curiouser and curiouser. Yeah, we followed that plotline through all the way to the end. It resolved itself. The Phantom. Well, with Torres gone, I guess someone else was bound to take up the mantle in this continuity. It's a good thing Janix is familiar with the basics of CQC. She's already good, and I attached the boot. Yep, she does. Past Janix does. Also, once again, I want to ask that you keep an eye out for Janix's eye, because I've recently I had to just delete an S because I kept writing eyes during past segments when Janix only has one eye. So if you ever see me mention Janix's eyes during the past segment, that'd be great to bring up. I'm always trying to keep an eye on it, but I make that mistake a lot because I forget. Going back and forth between Janix's 2 eyes, Janix's 1, Janix's 2 eyes, Janix's 1, it's bound to happen. And yeah, introducing the Phantom into this chapter, so much fun. I'm so glad. The cloak wasn't such a big deal in the Phantom. It was just something he used to conceal his identity. But I decided to give it more purpose and also reintroduce Ulysses Hill, who was the old guy who did work on it back in the Phantom story and was killed by Torres towards the end, before he could be questioned for any information. At least this is another opportunity to play detective, even if Janix and Cruz aren't the ones playing this time. Right. Yeah, Lila, Flame, HB, and Alexa are taking that role instead. Chris would make a really good curator if she ever found herself working as a blade. Would she? I never thought of it that way. I just thought because she develops weaponry that an outfitter would be like her main thing. But I guess I forgot what it is that curators do. The idea of the faithless in an environment like the Lawless sector reminds me of the world of Ruin in Final Fantasy VI. Namely, some NOCs walking around endlessly in a circle at the base of a certain tower. I imagine you meant NPCs. But yeah, the Faithless is a fun little thing that I mentioned from time to time. Oh, Ethos, you know nothing of what it means to be part of the Kristoff family. Yeah. Yeah. Fry got really mad at him. Okay, so this is the part where we're gonna... All your comments about Harper are gonna have me talking a lot. Interesting. But considering how goal-oriented Harper is, there's practically no reason to go after the safe house instead of Janix. Are there 2 Phantoms at work now? No, just him. Yes, because messing with forces beyond your knowledge and expertise always ends well. Gods, it's like Reeve hasn't watched anything Spider-Man or Full Metal Alchemist. He was just grieving and he was being illogical. The promise of life, of being able to bring someone back to life just because dark matter can reanimate ghost bodies, is indeed like a stretch. It's the stretchiest stretch, and Reeve acknowledges this is a stretch, but he was desperate to get his son back, and he fucked up. He fully admits he fucked up, and then he kills himself because he fucked up. Interesting to see Fry with an assault rifle instead of a Gatling gun. Once again, I forgot he had a Gatling gun. And that evidently Gwyn is no longer the only one capable of using grenades with his assault rifle. But I guess there won't be much of a safe house left if Fry had a Gatling gun equipped with a miniature missile system. Also cool to know Fry knows CQC. Yep. Or maybe it is in fact Harper. Well, he did say that while his beef is with Janix, anyone who got in his way was also going to get it if need be. And evidently, Janix isn't protected if she's dismissed. Somehow. I feel like that still wouldn't stop people close to her from defending her, but maybe there's an aspect to this puzzle I'm not quite getting. I think you're overthinking it. So I'm just gonna skip everything else and just answer it here. So the reason that Harper went to the safe house was that was his plan B. So his primary goal is to kill Janix. That's what he wants to accomplish. But if for some reason he can't kill her, then he at least wants to ensure that she can't be around the Reapers, because he's convinced himself that her being around the Reapers and being around the General is going to get them all killed. And so if he can't kill her, then he can at least ensure that she's dismissed or imprisoned for what she did during the massacre. If Ethos and his people are alive and testify, that will guarantee that in some way at least that maybe she won't be dismissed and imprisoned, because they'll what's the relationship here? Because they were the ones who set all that in motion by blowing the place up, driving Lau crazy, manipulating Lau, driving Lau to commit the massacre, which was something they didn't expect to happen. But it was something that was, it's like finding the blame, the source of the blame. So Steven believes that if they testify, most of the blame will be lifted off of Janix's action and put on Ethos and his people, because they're the ones who put Janix and Lau in the positions that they were in that caused everything to happen. But if he kills them and they're not around to testify and say that, then the blame solely rests on Lau and Janix, and Lau's dead, so it just leaves Janix to take the blame. So even if he fails to kill her, and if he dies himself, he can at least, in his mind, rest well knowing that she will still be dismissed and held accountable for everything that happened back in 2041, in terms of all the innocent people that she killed while she was enraged. So that's his plan. That's his plan B specifically. He still wants to kill her. That's absolutely the number one thing he wants to do, but he was planning ahead in case he failed. Pretty shite disguise there, Harper. If you're going to wear your motivation on your sleeves all the time, at least Taurus kept the act out for longer. Yeah, I mean, well, at that point, it was just that Fry already knew. Like, there was not many people who would come there, who would go there. And, like, once again, the only person who would have anything to gain from this is him. And also, the reason that Elma would know is because she was there when, at the end of the investigation, when Kumon told everybody about Harper and his grudge against Janix. And so there's only one person with a grudge who would want to ruin this, because the only person who would suffer from the death of Ethos and his people is Janix. And the only person who would want Janix to suffer currently is Harper. So it just kind of adds up for Fry when he called him out. And you let the last remaining witness live to spread information and potentially put a premature end to his plans. I'm not rooting for him, because I'd rather not see my man Fry done in by this so-called professional, let alone Janix. But by God, Harper is being really stupid here. Always double tap. Harper wasn't gonna kill Fry regardless. That wasn't his plan. Because the way Harper sees himself, he does believe he's a professional. And if he goes around killing innocent people, then that doesn't make him any better than Janix. He doesn't want to be Janix. So there's no point in killing Fry, because then he's no better than she is. And I know your follow-up will be, but because of him working with the last engineer and the distraction that he causes at the gates and the big battle and all the people who die when Dark Mirror is released, he just killed a bunch of innocents. So why is Fry the exception? I don't know. Fry's crazy. I mean, Harper kind of losing his mind, which I think becomes evident the longer he fights Janix and the more enraged the both of them become. But he doesn't... Basically, the way he sees it, the people who die at the wall are necessary because he needs a distraction to get Janix alone. Killing Fry accomplishes nothing, really. And, like, he vanishes after that, so it's not like they know where he is. And because of how everything ramps up super quickly after this, you know, the facility explodes, the wall's destroyed, war comes, it's not like they have time to follow him, regardless, and he still manages to get Janix on her own. So, I'm not saying, like, Harper's plan is the most foolproof, well-thought-out thing, because Harper is definitely not in a state of mind, but there is some sense to it. Like, I totally get you poking holes in it, because you can poke holes in it, but it's not meant to be some incredible foolproof thing that he came up with. He has been planning it for months, but I don't know why I'm defending Harper. Harper's an asshole. Oh snap, talk about bad karma. The day when the unnamed nobody in the fanfic would rise up and unironically prove to be part of a bigger threat. Or maybe I haven't been reading the right fanfics, because about the only times I've seen similar things to this are in shows and movies like Hellsing, Ultimate, Civil War, and a few DCAU episodes, and all those nobodies had names. I'm surprised there's still scraps to be found after the Agasura cannon tore through the machinery. True enough. Yeah, the unnamed last engineer popping up to taunt Chris. That scene underwent a lot of revisions, because originally there was a version of it where when I originally wrote the scene, he was in the office when she got there, but then I realized that wouldn't make some things make sense, so I had it so that he wasn't there when she came in. He was Skyping in from somewhere else. Also, it was intentional that I not name him. And actually, his original death was different, because he was with Chris when he died, and he was taunting her for how he was able to beat her and best her and outwit her, and he was going to be like, and everyone's going to forget you, but they will remember me as the person who beat you. He's like, they'll remember my name, and then as he's about to yell out his name, Elma shoots him and saves Chris. So that was an older version of it, but it was a little too on the nose, so this way I kept it the same, though. I made sure no one knew his name, because it didn't matter. So apart from testing out the new cloak, what exactly did Harper have to gain in going after the safe house when he was going to get his one-on-one time with Janix, regardless of whether or not those corrupted individuals were dead thanks to the distraction? Because there's no way he'd be satisfied with anything short of Janix's death. I don't see how trying to guarantee that her military career's foobard is going to help him rest any easier if he ultimately dies and she lives. Well, I mean, I just covered that it was his backup plan, because his goal is to kill Janix, but that's not the end of it. Like, by killing Janix, he believes he can save Kumon, Eren, Tai, Sajis, Alto, and even Lila's lives. He thinks they'll be safer if she's dead. So his thing isn't, I'm going to kill you because I want to kill you. It's more, I want to kill you because I want to save them. And if he can't, then if she's not around them, then he saves them anyway. So that's what it is. Hope that makes sense. Even before the Exodus, someone out there was working on a way to prove that ground gear can outclass Skells. Every dog has his day, and today's dog is Solomon. Didn't expect to see him working on the front lines. Yeah, I wanted to establish Solomon as a leader for the forces of the Cross. And so, last engineer A died as he lived, unceremoniously as a nameless nobody. My goal. Curious, did you spare the Blood Lobster too? Because that's sort of the impression I got from the way the Harper fight ended. And I think it's appropriate not to give such scum the satisfaction getting what they want, and instead of watching them wallow in despair. I understand that bigly, in terms of killing the Blood Lobster and killing Harper. There were a ton of ways that this fight ended, and 99% of them, like, I think in my head I wrote like 10 different versions of this fight, and in 9 of those fights, Harper died at the end. The thing is, so here's the original version of how the fight was going to end. Harper wanted to prove Janix was irredeemable with his death. He believed that if he could enrage her and have her kill him in her fury, that would prove that he was right all along and that she's an animal. And she realizes that when Kumon and Lila tell her that, that they can't let him be proved right, and that's why she spares him. Originally, in a bunch of other versions of the fight, she acknowledges that and then kills him anyway, but as herself. Not out of rage, but out of realizing that he's dangerous to have alive. And there were a lot of ways that I justified that to myself as making sense, because I wanted Harper to die. But regardless of how I justified it, it still felt like it was just completely undoing the fact that she spared him just to kill him. And so I changed it into him being unable to accept it and her walking away, only for him to try to stab her in the back, which would then drive her to kill him. That was another version that I had. And I was kind of satisfied with that one more, because she wasn't killing him out of rage, but rather out of self-defense. But I also wasn't happy with that for some reason. I can't remember why. So we ended up with this version where he lives. For how long? I don't know. Much like the Lao fight, I'm curious to see 2 chapters from now the aftermath of all this. Oh boy, there is a lot of aftermath. Obviously, the conflict's not entirely resolved. There's still Dark Mirror to attend to, and though I expressed confusion multiple times at the point of Harper going to the safe house outside of demonstrating to readers the capabilities of the Phantom Cloak, and Harper's new armaments to us readers, it can't be denied that the death of some, if not all, of those snakes is going to impact the investigation against Janix, and any investigation to the internal corruption with only the Ethos recording to go on. There's also the whole thing of how Chris was given passage aboard the Whale to serve as lecturer and scientist, as compensation for her being impacted by said corruption, if most/all the corrupt individuals are dead and unable to compensate her as such. In the meantime, though, looking forward to the next slice of life chapter of the Starship White Whale and the crew as they continue to go where no man has gone before. So, yeah, you were confused by that. I hope I explained it in a way that made sense as to why Harper's actions were sensible and also nonsensical at the same time. Chris being given passage, though, I figure it still makes sense, because while the corrupt individuals are dead, there's still other people in charge of the coalition who weren't responsible. It's not like only 9 people run the coalition, because that's how many traitors there were. It was Ethos, 8 others, and I guess Benton too, though he doesn't count. He'd be the 10th one. And Reeve to some extent, even though he wasn't malicious at all in what he was trying to do. It just didn't work out for him. So 11, but 11 people can't really run the coalition. Let's say that there's like 20 in total. Well, 10, because Benton doesn't run the coalition. He was just a doctor. So 10. So then there's maybe 10 more people left running the coalition. It's those people who kind of realize, hey, our comrades kind of screwed Chris over. Let's give her something as compensation. So it would be those people who would be responsible for paying Chris for all the undue trauma. Even though we all know Chris probably wouldn't even see it as trauma. She'd just be like, it's Tuesday. So that's a lot. Oh my gosh, I spent so long talking about perspective, but it's a big chapter. Once again, it wasn't supposed to be as big as it was, and part of me was like, I think I might be going through the fight at the end a little much. But the Battle of the Wall, which is what it's called, was not supposed to be the focus, so I'm glad that there was no comment about that fight was very in the background, because it wasn't important. It was just there to keep everyone busy, while Janix and Steven had their one-on-one, which I will give you quite a bit of credit for how it went. Originally, that fight was like almost entirely on foot, but like after the investigation,